Hello everyone, this is Helios Raven. I tell you how I do it, even if you don't care. And we're continuing our look into the Traitor Fleet Legion section of the Armada Handbook, when we just went over all the cruisers and battleships that the Chaos Forces got in addition to what they had, and now we're looking into the special rules. Unlike the Imperial Navy, Chaos didn't get many vessels. Instead, they got more special rules to make themselves more unique and distinct from the Imperial forces. And one of the rules that they got was demon-possessed ships. Chaos was actually allowed to get possessed ships in their forces. To represent these models, you could either buy the conversion pack that Games Workshop sells, or get a little creative with some extra bits, green stuff, hobby knife, and glue, and create your own unique-looking demonized ships. In terms of stats, this did not affect the stats of the ship in any way, shape, or form. The ships didn't lose anything or gain anything in terms of weaponry or stats. What it did, though, is it did increase the point cost for each of the vessels. If it were a battleship that was being possessed, it would add 50 points to its point cost. If it was a Grand Cruiser, it would add 30 points. If it was a Heavy Cruiser, it would add 25. And if it was a regular cruiser, it would add 20. A demon-possessed ship was not allowed to be commanded by a War Master or a Chaos Lord, even if it's the largest ship in the fleet. Yes, for one rule I forgot to mention, Chaos Lords and Chaos War Masters were supposed to be assigned to the most expensive ship in the fleet, which, if it happens to be a possessed Chaos ship, then you'd go to the next most expensive ship in the fleet. The demon ships also could not carry special weaponry allowed for landing troops onto do planetary assault missions, so basically demon ships couldn't count towards dropping troops onto a planet. And they may be given a single mark of chaos and follow all the rules that are applied by those chaos marks for the regular price listed in the Battlefleet Gothic rulebook. Demon ships also have to roll a leadership roll, getting on a roll of a 1 it's a 6, on a 2 or 3 it's a 7, on a 4 or 5 it's an 8, and on a 6 it's a 9. And aside from this, the demon ships were given the following special rules. The first was warp translation. Chaos ships were allowed to not be deployed at the beginning of the game and instead hold in reserve to represent them hiding in the warp waiting to be summoned until the Chaos player wishes to bring them out. At the beginning of the end phase of the Chaos player's turn, he may summon the demon ships. They may place it in either a friendly vehicle or an enemy vessel. The only thing is it had to be a capital ship that the vessel was being summoned by, and you had to place it within 20 centimeters of the ship on the field. You then rolled 4d6 and a scatter die, and you moved it in that direction indicated on the scatter die, keeping it in that direction, keeping it moving in that heading. If a hit roll was landed, then you were allowed to place it in facing wherever you want on the it lands on target facing in whichever direction you want. And then the demon ship would be unaffected by celestial phenomena that were happening at the time, and it couldn't trigger attacks by ordnance that it may have happened to touch or land on. And if it comes in contact with an enemy vessel, you must move it 1 centimeter away so it's no longer in contact. Then the thing is counted as a spectral demon ship. It basically is there, but it isn't there. Ships can see it and avoid it accordingly, but in terms of actual game rules, it was intangible. What this allowed it to do was any ship wishing to perform a special order while within 15 centimeters of the ship took a -1 to the leadership. And if the demon ship also happened to have the mark of Slanesh on it, the bonus was accumulated, giving it a -2 to its leadership. But other than that, the vessel couldn't do much. Because it wasn't physically there, it was intangible at the time. But at the end of any subsequent Chaos end phase in which it was summoned, you may decide to complete its transition from the warp to real space. If you decide not to, it just sits there and keeps doing what it's doing. If not, and you decide to bring it into the fray, you roll a d6, and on a 2 or more, it comes into the real world. And at that point, it's a solid ship and works as normal. But when you summon it, you cannot perform any action with it at that turn. So you can't sit there and have it wait till a capital ship gets close to it, bring it, manifest it, and then launch a hit-and-run attack on the capital ship. It basically, coming into play, is its turn for is its action for the turn. Then the last special rule that it had was Haunting. The vessel was allowed to disengage at any time at the end of any chaos movement phase without having to make any dice roll. You just simply remove it from the field that it represents going back to the warp. And it may re-enter play on any chaos turn following the one that it left, following the rules that we just went over. If it took any damage when it disengaged, it may repair it when it returns. On a roll of a d6, on a 4 or 5, it gets 1 hull point back. On a 6, it gets 2 hull points back. You add +1 to the roll if it's a battleship, and +1 for each full turn the demon ship spent in the warp. And a returning demon ship cannot come back with more hit points than it normally had, and at the end of the game, if a demon ship, even if it only did it once, had disengaged, it counts as having been disengaged, having disengaged for victory point purposes, unless, of course, it was destroyed during the game or crippled when the normal rules applied. Now, in terms of practicality, I'm not a big fan of possessed chaos ships. I don't think you get much for the points that you're adding to it. Granted, there are a lot of really neat tactical advantages to having these ships that are probably there, and I'm just not realizing them because, like I said, I'm not really good in terms of strategy and tactical thinking when it comes to wargaming. There are a couple of neat tricks I could probably perform with this, like possibly with Slanesh ships, keeping them in spectral form, really messing up rule orders that and command checks that the vessels around it are trying to perform. And it's really good for getting behind enemy vessels really fast and such. So there's a lot of teleportational capabilities of these vessels, but in a whole, I'd probably not bother with them myself. But then again, that's my own personal preference. There's probably tons of things you could think of to really utilize the point cost of these ships and really use their rules to their fullest advantage and really hit the enemy hard where they least expect it, especially with this whole transportation thing. If you give it to a cruiser that's very good at close combat, you could have it teleport right in front of the enemy capital ship and then unload its weapon batteries onto it in the following turn. So there are possibilities and such. I just personally don't think that they're great. But that is basically it for possessed ships. We are running fairly low on time for me to actually start explaining the next special rule, so we're going to do that in another video. So until next time, this is Helios Raven, signing off.